Determination Chapter 4 Festival. Varian's nap was short-lived. Just minutes after dozing off, he was tapped on the shoulder, which woke him up. He quickly sat up straight, remembering he wasn't at home, but rather a guest at someone else's residence. Before he could apologize for falling asleep, Young spoke up. "Dinner is ready. Come join us." He didn't give Varian much time to respond before grabbing his hand and pulling him over to the rest of the family. There were 4 people sitting at the table. Varian recognized Kang, but the other people he had not met yet. One of them seemed to be a boy, around the same age as him, if not a bit older. He had long black hair that was neatly put up into a bun, piercing blue eyes and some hair in his lip that looked like the failed attempt at a mustache. Next to him was what seemed to be the eldest brother. He had short, well-kept black hair and a friendly look in his eyes. His hands, which were resting in his lap, were covered in burn scars, and one of the fingers was gone. Young had sat down next to the eldest son, leaving a space for Varian to sit next to the head of the family. Slowly, the alchemist sunk down on his knees in his designated spot at the table. He looked around at the unfamiliar faces. The last of those new faces was a young girl. She couldn't be much older than 7. Her long hair was put up into 2 buns and topped off with red ribbons, matching the color of her dress. She smiled at Varian, greeting him with a small bow of her head. Varian smiled back, bowing in return. "Varian will be sharing dinner with us today as our guest," Kang spoke, helping everyone to some tea and the first serving of an arrangement of dumplings. "He is staying the night as well. Please be kind to him." A stern look was sent in the direction of the long-haired boy. "Varian, meet my other children. The little girl is named Dayu." Kang moved out of the way so Varian could greet her. "The eldest goes by Juan. He really lives up to that name. The boy next to him is Hang." The 2 brothers bowed their head to greet their guest, Varian answering with the same bow. "It's an honor to meet you all," the brunette said quietly, uncertain if he was allowed to speak. "The honor is all mine," the 2 brothers said in unison. Both immediately turned their head. They looked at each other for a few seconds as tension built between them. Varian wasn't sure if it was a good or a bad tension, until the brothers suddenly broke out in a fit of giggles, punching each other on the arm. The alchemist breathed a sigh of relief, the fear of being castified leaving his mind. Seeing how natural the family was acting, even while having a guest over, made him feel a lot safer and accepted. As the 2 boys kept laughing and prodding and poking each other, Kang cleared his throat. That was enough of a warning to make them stop play fighting and focus on the meal at hand. "Let us pray. Our guest wants to eat, and I'm not opposed to that either," the head of the family announced. For a moment, Varian was confused. He had never prayed before a meal, but he knew other cultures did that often. He didn't know how it worked though. Should he just copy the others? All 5 members of the family rested their hands in their lap and shut their eyes. Varian quickly copied them. Kang began to speak, the others staying silent. "May this meal help us maintain the health in our body and mind, and to uphold the teachings of the Buddha, to repay the 4 favors and reform the pure conduct of serving others." Then the children chimed in, and the last sentence was said in unison. "Nam myo renge kyo ikadam." I don't know if I pronounced that right. When everyone fell silent, Varian opened his eyes. He had so many questions, but he wasn't sure if it was appropriate to ask most of them. So, instead of asking questions, he watched each family member pick up their chopsticks and start eating. Another thing he was unfamiliar with, the utensils. He picked up his chopsticks and watched how others were holding them, trying to copy it. He then attempted to pick up a dumpling. It slipped out of his grip and fell back onto the plate. He frowned and tried again. Young noticed his struggle and chuckled a bit. "Copy me, Varian." He showed the boys step by step how to hold the utensils and how to put them to use. It took a few minutes, but finally Varian managed to pick up a dumpling and eat it. "You did it! Good job!" Young cheered him on. Varian smiled as an expression of gratefulness to his friends, continuing to eat his food that was given to him. When everyone was done eating, another short prayer of gratitude was said and the dishes were brought to the kitchen to be cleaned. Young came over to Varian in the dining room. Come, you can sleep in my room. My bed is big enough for the both of us. Varian followed the younger boy down the hall and up some stairs. He was exhausted and just wanted to rest. He wanted to sleep away the aching of his muscles, the blisters on his feet, the cramping of his stomach in response to food after a period of starvation, and most of all, he wanted to sleep to get rid of that heavy feeling exhaustion brings along. Tomorrow everything would be better if he just got some uninterrupted rest tonight. He didn't even notice he was already standing in Young's bedroom, just staring at a wall, until the boy pulled at his sleeve to get his attention. Varian looked down at him with a blank expression. Lie down, you can't sleep standing, Young told him, trying to gently push him onto the bed and get him to rest. The alchemist nodded and lay down, pulling the blanket over himself. He could feel Rutger curl up near his head, and Young adjusting the blanket so he covered him comfortably. Good night, Varian, was the last thing he heard before falling into a deep sleep. Early in the morning, before the sun even dared to climb over the horizon, Varian woke up. For once he had a peaceful night. No dreams or nightmares, and he felt nice and rested. Sure, his muscles still ached, but he could live with that. He slowly sat up, careful not to wake Young or Rutger, who were both curled up and still fast asleep. Quietly he maneuvered his way out of the bed so he could stretch and watch the sunrise. Varian loved watching sunrises and sunsets. The beautiful colors, the slowly increasing or decreasing light, the song of the birds, people and other animals waking up or getting ready to sleep. Dawn was beautiful for being a new start, a new day full of new opportunities and beautiful things, whereas dusk was just as beautiful for opposite reasoning. Dusk means the end of a day. It means rest, peace and quiet, and overall gave him a feeling of safety. Everything could be absolutely beautiful depending on the way you look at it. Your look on life can greatly affect your behavior and emotions. Varian had experienced that firsthand. Fear and hopelessness had made him do horrible things in the past. Just because he couldn't regulate those overwhelming emotions or look at the situation with reason and thoughtfulness. Instead, he had let his feelings take control and harmed others in the process. He had paid for it and learned to regulate his emotions, to evaluate the situation with logic before taking action, and to not let feelings take control. It still was a struggle sometimes, and he preferred to keep his dark past a secret. Some people may never understand, which is fine, of course, but it's one of the reasons people are better off not knowing. Other reasons are that they might abandon him or try to harm him or purposely set him off and use him for evil. Varian never wanted to be used again, whether it was for good or evil. Being used in any way just feels wrong. He sighed, trying to make himself stop thinking and just watch the sky slowly but surely light up. He listened to the song the birds had to offer and leaned on the windowsill, resting his head in his hands. Slowly but surely, Varian felt himself relax. The sky looked absolutely breathtaking today, even though it wasn't all that special. The sun painted it a beautiful red color, mixed here and there with shades of orange and yellow. Unfortunately, those colors didn't last a very long time. About half an hour later, the red was replaced by a blue but cloudy horizon. Again, a nice day for the last weeks of winter. Varian smiled a bit. He felt extremely grateful to be blessed with such good weather on his journey so far. He decided now was a good time to continue trying to understand where to find the fire trial. Varian rummaged through his bag, soon finding and pulling out the diary. He laid it down on the windowsill and opened it at the bookmark. The page was covered in strange letters and drawings. There was a hasty doodle of a dragon surrounded by a lap of text in those strange symbols. The translation of those notes were written down in Varian's own notebook. He didn't want to ruin his mother's notebook by writing the translation right under the words. The big wall of text didn't have much value, though. It was just Ola talking about her day and how she missed Kieran, also adding that this was just a practice for her to try out the encrypted language and improve her writing. What Varian was most interested in was a tiny piece of text that was written at the corner of a page. It only had 4 lines and translated into a strange rhyme or riddle. Find the entrance, hidden behind age-old stone. where heat brews like no other, and no nature dares to grow. By the dragon you will find the key, but be prepared, for none before us have returned, the families despaired. That is what it translated into. It just didn't make sense. Age-old stone, where heat brews and no nature grows. What place would be so hot nature would refuse to grow there? And what is that about a dragon? Those are just folklore, stories. Dragons didn't exist, at least not in the physical realm of reality Varian was in. He had been trying to figure out what the rhyme meant for hours now. It seemed to be pointing him to the entrance of the fire trial. He figured it that much, but that's where he got stuck. The second line is what confused him the most. He couldn't think of any place that was so hot no plants could grow. Nature could flourish under insane circumstances. They could grow in the dark, in the desert, in the rainforest, underwater, between rocks and on wood. Varian sighed, sitting down on the floor and looking at his own notebook. He kept repeating those 4 lines in his mind, as if that would miraculously bring up a solution. Obviously, it never brought him an answer, but it did manage to make him hyper-focus on the task. The entire world around him just didn't matter in this moment. All that mattered was the riddle and its implications. He was so focused that even Young's voice didn't get through to him for the first few sentences. I think I know where that is. Are you going there?